back to the second of our Zetatalks, second in a series of talks where we're inviting industry experts to discuss topics that are of note for the blockchain industry and around omni-chain smart contracts in particular. So this session is going to be around smart contracts on Bitcoin, which we believe is the next groundbreaking innovation in Web3. We're just waiting for a few more speakers to join. So why don't we start by letting the speakers who are already here introduce themselves and the companies that they represent. Who wants to go first?
I guess I'll go first. Hey everybody, my name is Moose. I'm a core contributor at Multibit .exchange, and currently I'm basically helping with operational stuff, doing a little product work. And a little bit about us is our original vision was like the first EVM compatible BRC20 bridge, which essentially allows Ethereum liquidity into the Bitcoin ecosystem, which is like a huge issue essentially, as the BRC ecosystem is like very illiquid. But more recently, we've kind of adapted the like omni-chain kind of narrative and bringing in multiple chains liquidities, not just EVM. And essentially, we were working with a ton of different BRC20 projects, allowing them a EVM or like Solana pair, which essentially allows their users to gain access to more liquidity and not really sell their like BRC assets on an OTC market essentially.
Cool, excellent. Okay, I'll say, Alex, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
No.
Excellent. All right. I'm Haddon Espiridio with the Alex Lab Foundation. I'm the BD lead. And Alex is the finance layer of Bitcoin. What we do is that we seamlessly merge L1 assets with L2 programmability and scalability. So on Alex, Bitcoin L1 assets such as Bitcoin and BRC20 tokens can be bridged to L2 smart contract layers, enabling listing and using BRC20 in an order book. We have multi-chain liquidity through the Xlink bridge. We have a multi-chain launchpad that connects Bitcoin liquidity to L2s as well as Ethereum and Binance. And we've done infrastructure work on the Bitcoin Oracle to create a consensus layer for greater security and immutability between off-chain indexers. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Happy to have you here. Gem Master, do you want to go next?
Hello, sure. Can you hear me?
Yep. I can hear you. Yep, no problem.
Yeah. I am founder of Zetatalks, and I am also KOL in Turkey. I am based in Istanbul, Turkey, and like sharing Bitcoin and the ecosystem like for a long time. And thanks to a lot of people in Turkey, also learned about more Bitcoin. Alex Lab, for example, is very nice projects. I am holder of Alex for a long time. And yeah, I am also Bitcoin Maxi, and in the Zigrato, what I am doing, actually, we are not a projects, but we are helping projects marketing in a lot of ways, in creating their community and doing their marketing with other KOLs and showing their projects to everyone. And right now, as you know, Bitcoin network is growing very fastly. Today, our tax smart contracts on Bitcoin also this is going very fast too, because in the past there was not like that a lot of projects. There was just a few projects, But right now we are seeing the Bitcoin market is growing, and also I am working with a lot of venture capitals and helping their investments. And right now also investments on Bitcoin ecosystem tokens growing very fastly, especially in the BRC20 tokens. Yeah, right now actually I am helping the projects on Bitcoin network to growing their community and yeah, like that. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Great to have you here. Who wants to go next? Mr. Block, you just got on the line. Do you want to introduce yourself to the audience here?
Hey guys, thank you for having me here, and sorry that I was late. Um, yeah, so a bit about myself and then the curve. So, I have been in crypto ever since 2016. That's when I started Mr. Block, which is a crypto tutorial channel where I've been making, DeFi video, inscription, and so on. I've done over 1,300 video, made a lot of video about Zeta chain as well. Yeah, and it's all in Chinese, so it's usually about kind of bridging the west with the east with the west. And some of my earliest video were about Aave when it was still called ETHLend and Lend, then Aave, Uni V1, V2, V3, Haven, then later SNX. Yeah, so a lot of the early stuff. I still do these daily videos. Um, and in 2020, I joined Curve, and Curve started as a decentralized stablecoin exchange, and being one of the earliest DeFi project during the DeFi summer and pioneer the VCRV design. And now it has grown so much more and have uh, deployed most of the major L1 and L2. And now with the collaboration with Zeta Chain, it enables Curve to support even assets that's outside of EVM chains. So that's something really exciting. Allow us to tap into the Bitcoin ecosystems, allow us to look into the BRC20 assets. And on top of that, last year we launched CRV USD, which is our Curve stablecoins with the soft liquidation. That's also something very new and hasn't been done before. I think this year will be a very exciting year for Curve as we expand to other chain and work closely with our ecosystem partner, and also have multiple um, tools around, such as the bribery market, or most people known as the Curve War. Yeah, thank you very much.
Awesome. Great to have you here. And thanks for the shout out for our partnership. We're very excited to work with Curve going forward. So great to have you here. Okay. And I think Corbin is the only one of the speakers who hasn't yet introduced himself. So over to you, Corbin.
Hey guys. Yeah, my name's Corbin. I'm the head of financial services at Bitcoin.com. I got into Bitcoin and crypto back in 2013, 2014. This is like back in the days when people would send Bitcoin to each other. It was kind of a fun time. It was a good vibe, man. You could be on Reddit saying stupid stuff, and then people would be like, "Hey, here's a little tip in Bitcoin." And that was kind of how I got orange pilled. But yeah, I grew up, I guess, around all this crypto stuff. It was fun. I ended up growing within Bitcoin.com. I started as a developer at Bitcoin.com back in 2017. Was doing some crypto development prior as well, but yeah, so now in charge of the product side of stuff. On basically oversees a lot of the stuff in our self-custodial wallet, where we've got like 46 million wallets created. Our wallet supports Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, Avalanche C Chain, Binance Smart Chain, Polygon, whole bunch more, all the tokens, all that good stuff. So, we've got this like very valuable domain with a shit ton of new users coming in regularly. So when Elon says, buy Doge, buy Bitcoin, we get a ton of traffic coming in organically saying, okay, I guess I better check out this Bitcoin stuff. So, you know, obviously with the ETF announcements and stuff like that, we've been seeing a tremendous growth with regards to new users coming in, old users coming back, you know, that maybe felt a little burned during the bear markets, and now they're kind of saying, oh, maybe it's worth taking another look. So yeah, you know, we've been kind of through the weeds. We've done the scaling wars. We've done tokens on Bitcoin Cash before. There's actually a lot of stuff that I think the Bitcoin smart contract side of stuff could really borrow and steal from other chains, including some of the stuff that we've seen on other UTXO based chains, whether that's BCH or BSV or Litecoin or any of these other, even like Doge. Yeah, so I think that's kind of it. Yeah, we've been kind of focusing on, you know, more token integrations, more protocol integrations into our wallet. And yeah, we're actively watching, you know, what's going on with BRCs and ordinals and all that fun stuff. But yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome, great to have you here, and look forward to getting into that stuff as well. I think I missed there was one more panelist who we haven't introduced yet, which is Tonka Finance. So apologies. The floor is yours to introduce the project and what you guys do.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sorry, we had some technical difficulties. But yeah, thanks for having us. We're really excited to talk about this topic. Obviously, it's really important to us and what we're building. I'm really excited to see this movement and the conversation coming back towards Bitcoin. A lot of us have been in the space for a long time, and it seems the conversation has drifted a bit. And it's really exciting to see this past year, not just, you know, the interest, but then also liquidity and money coming back to the space, and then development. So at Tonka, you know, we do the inscription, borrowing, and lending. So we're the first platform to allow borrowing and lending of the inscription assets, and we think helping move this liquidity is the stage we're at, and it's something really exciting going on in the market.
Awesome. Whereabouts are you? Are you calling from? It sounds like you're outside somewhere nice, a jungle or something, right?
It might sound like the jungle. I actually live in Puerto Rico. But yeah, you can probably hear some frogs in the background.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you to all our speakers for joining us. As I said at the start, and new people who are joining might not be aware, so I'll just go over it again. This is the second of a series of Zetatalks in which we get experts on very key topics happening in the crypto space. The first talk was back last month on DeFi, really looking at DeFi summer and how that's changed since then. This month's episode is a little bit different. We're looking at smart contracts on Bitcoin. Obviously, a huge topic now. I think everybody knows Bitcoin ETF is the biggest point of conversation in the industry at the moment, and I think it's fair to say that Bitcoin was very dominant in terms of the crypto narrative from 2023, which was, you know, a pretty bad year for everyone in the industry, really. But if you look at what Bitcoin did, propped up the industry and the price of Bitcoin is only one part of it, right? There's a lot of activity in terms of projects coming out, and that's what we're going to touch on today, looking at the smart contract potential on Bitcoin. So actually, Corbin did an amazing job of introducing, I guess, what Bitcoin used to be like, and I think you even said it used to be maybe not a lot more fun, but it was a bit more kind of crazy out there. I think that's where I want to start this conversation at, really, which is, you know, Bitcoin obviously is the OG cryptocurrency. I've certainly been involved in buying it since 2014. Probably didn't buy enough back in 2014, but is there an argument that Bitcoin is still cool today? I mean, obviously, developers out there can build you know, crazy kind of dApps and DeFi projects on Ethereum and Solana and other kinds of chains. You know, what is it that makes Bitcoin still interesting today in a world where, you know, there's much more developer friendly chains? So I'll let anybody on the speakers can chime in whenever you like, and we'll go from there. So yeah, what is it that makes Bitcoin cool today, despite the growth of other more developer friendly ecosystems out there?
Sure. If you guys don't mind, I'll jump in on that. Like, Bitcoin is the OG, right? everyone's kind of got to bow to the king for the time being. And I'm not one of those people that says Bitcoin will be number one forever. It's got the most network effect. It's going to be the most difficult to ever shake. But network effects have been broken before. Look at Usenet, look at MySpace, look at Friendster. All, whether it's Bird, apps and companies and things like that do sometimes flip. But for the time being, and at least for the foreseeable future, Orange Coin is number one. So everyone coming into crypto, whether you're saying, hey, okay, we've got this cool new L2, we've got this great new L1, whatever, it's cool, but you're only attracting people already in the crypto space. All of the new users, the people you want in your chain, the folks that you want to be onboarded into your L1 or L2, they've got to start somewhere, and they're typically not going right into your L1 or your L2. It's a little too big of a black box for them. They're going to start in Bitcoin. It's what they're going to hear about in the news. It's what the celebrities are going to talk about. It's what the banks now are going to say is somewhat more respectable. Even if you've got folks like Gary Gensler and the SEC still saying like, nah, Bitcoin, that stuff's still toxic waste, even though we, accepted these ETFs, we still don't recommend it. But I think Bitcoin was at risk for a few years there of being boomer coin. Like, it was not fun. It was extremely fun before. Bitcoin was like, man, pre scaling wars, Bitcoin was super fun. And then I think we got into this weird kind of vibe for pretty much from like 2016 onwards, when I'd say like network fees got a little bit outrageous for a little while there. There was a lot of fighting over SegWit 2x and a lot of fighting over like, should we increase the block size? You had the Bitcoin Cash fork, which then of course proceeded into Bitcoin SV fork, which also had some Bitcoin ABC forks and eCash. And so it's kind of been like this, like, if you followed the like the Bitcoin family and the family drama, it's spread out now, where this community that was once one is now this like divorced, broken home with like children all over the world, and they'll have their like weird mommy and daddy issues. And but at the end of the day, they're all still kind of fighting for what they believe in. And I think that's kind of the cool thing about Bitcoin and crypto, is that like, hey, you can go try it out. If you don't like the way it's going, you can go do your own thing and see how it goes. But I think the way that Bitcoin was proceeding for a while was that it was slow, it was boring, it was like, don't build on this thing. And then, whether through the blessings of the Bitcoin gods, we were able to, I guess, introduce a bug, or at least a quirk, and the quirk can now be exploited, where fun is able to be, brought back into Bitcoin. And for me, it's the first time in like, I don't know, I'd say like, yeah, like since 2016, 2017, where I'm like, Bitcoin's kind of cool again. And you've got people building some interesting stuff on it and borrowing ideas where people were innovating on other chains, whether that's Ethereum or, Bitcoin Cash or Polygon or Solana or whatever. And they can now say, hey, we're gonna figure out different ways to do tokens. We're gonna figure out different ways to do NFTs. And suddenly you've got this permissionless way to use the boomer coin and the most secure chain and the biggest granddaddy chain to like do cool shit. And I think it's like, it's fun, but there is still that risk factor, which for me, is one of the reasons we haven't gone all in on being like, all right, we should support BRC, we should support ordinals right away, because there is still that risk that all it takes is like a few core developers to be like, you know what, we should patch that. Let's kick these guys out. We don't want this spam. And I think, we're seeing a little bit of like some of that concern, I guess, from within the Bitcoin community, where you've got some people being like, hey man, use Bitcoin for whatever you want. And then you got some being like, nah, we're Bitcoin purists. We don't want anyone doing anything except for settlement layer and digital gold. So I don't know, man, it could result in another fork. It could be like, or it could just be like another UASF, like the user activated soft fork, where folks building on Bitcoin, doing NFTs, doing ordinals, doing tokens, they're going to have to fight, and they're going to have to like really get their community banded together to prevent, core developers from cutting them off, because it is possible they can do that.
No, awesome. I'll jump in and follow up on that. That I agree. This is an incredibly exciting time for Bitcoin, And Alex began building in 2021. We building Bitcoin DeFi, and so before ordinals, even then it was a very controversial decision to do. But as a team of former financial quants, we had the view that DeFi or that Bitcoin didn't need DeFi, but DeFi needed Bitcoin. It needed the security and immutability of Bitcoin if there was going to be mass adoption, by which we mean we didn't build looking to compete with Ethereum or Solana liquidity, but the liquidity of TradFi itself. And in 2023 was really remarkable because with the Ordinals protocol, we've had the shift of Bitcoin from being purely a money layer to Bitcoin becoming a data layer. With Ordinals, that was the first time that you had a Satoshi trading for more than its monetary value. It was now trading at a premium due to its block space, due to the data that was inscribed upon it. And we foresee a point of time in the future where the most valuable information, say financial institutions who are settling billions of dollars worth of mortgage transactions, they will pay a high premium to settle that on the most secure and immutable data layer that exists. So our point of view is, though we do believe the future is multi-chain and that each blockchain will serve a purpose, that in terms of store of value and store of data, Bitcoin is likely to remain unique because of its track record going back 15 years, the fact that it hasn't had transactions reversed, its network uptime, it has survived multiple 80% drawdowns, and its core protocol is still very much close to what it was on day one. And really, a core of that is proof of work at the core of that success, because with proof of work, you are trusting in the laws of physics. It anchors Bitcoin to the physical realm in a very real way. For us to look at a future where financial securities are traded on the blockchain, will these financial institutions be more comfortable with the proof of work of Bitcoin that has multiple Bitcoin miners who are publicly listed, and there's an entire industry behind it, and all of this public electrical infrastructure that is going to be backed by it to secure that trading? Or would they rely on, say, Ethereum, where early Ethereum buyers compose a lot of those proof of stakers? So I think that there are trade-offs to every trade, but that the value that Bitcoin provides is truly unique. We think that the successful experiments we've seen on other chains will come home to Bitcoin. And the point of view of Alex is that if all roads lead to Bitcoin, all the roads on Bitcoin lead to layer 2 solutions that can provide the programmability and the scalability that can provide Bitcoin the ability to really develop a native Bitcoin economy. So I think it's an incredible time to be building with the halving cycle coming up and all these narratives coming together. And we're very excited to be a part of this industry and to discuss it on the space with you guys. Thanks.
To kind of go off of Corbin's point, I just wanted to add, once in 2040, I mean, all the Bitcoin will be essentially mined, and with Bitcoin's new Taproot upgrade and all the BRC20 hype, it's really given miners a new incentive to kind of make money and make it make sense for them to run these validators. So I think the growth in the Bitcoin ecosystem kind of helps Bitcoin evolve in every direction, really, as well as its security. And kind of what I didn't mention, what we're doing at Multibit is we're also letting EVM and Rust compatible ecosystems hedge themselves with Bitcoin's proof of work consensus, essentially. Anybody that's been here since 2016 obviously knows about Ethereum Classic and Ethereum having to relaunch, essentially. So I think developers are intrigued by Bitcoin's security, the fact that it's been battle tested, its decentralized nature. There's only 21 million Bitcoin, obviously. Other chains, we don't really know the max cap of the supply. So it's very transparent for developers. And yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, and I agree with both you guys that Bitcoin has proven itself as the best security layer. But also, I think at this point, after all these different waves, institutions now coming into the space, that it's starting to prove itself as that value layer for long-term value. And I really like what you said, Alex, about it being kind of needed in the DeFi space. It wasn't like it needs DeFi. It's the other way around. It's like DeFi always needed Bitcoin because I think it provides that underlying value layer and security layer. So similar to the modular blockchain structures that we heard a lot about, last year. Celestia talks a lot about that. You're using each layer on the chain that provides the best use case. And Bitcoin really provides the best use case when it comes to DeFi. In my opinion, it all comes back to its currency and its value as a currency in forms of exchange. But then we're tapping into being a bridge now to other layer twos and other networks that provide more efficiency. And that's where, with Tonka, we do that bridge through the inscription staking because these are slightly different assets than borrowing and lending tokens, for example. Inscriptions are packets of value instead of being fungible tokens. So all of these need systems built out, and I think that's the stage we're at with the current technology, which is really exciting because we're going to see these waves of attention as things develop. But there's almost a playbook at this point, and we can kind of see where we're at now, develop this infrastructure between networks and getting in front of the right people and moving liquidity to the right places. But there's a lot more to come because this is just new technology, and we still have a lot more to discover, I think.
Cool. Anybody have any thoughts they want to add based on what other speakers said? The question, or do you want to move on to the next topic? Okay, I take that as being that we've covered that so thoroughly, but actually it overlaps with a lot of the other questions that we're going to be talking about, which is obviously great because it's a very holistic conversation. I'm just curious, like there was some conversation within that about resistance, about the different pockets of communities that are living in the Bitcoin ecosystem. I'm just kind of curious, like whether you guys, with the work that you're doing, obviously to bring DeFi into Bitcoin and to bring smart contracts into Bitcoin and other sorts of dApps, what kind of resistance do you guys see from the broader community, and particularly from folks who have quite a rigid sort of view of what Bitcoin should be and what it should be used for?
I think I'll take that and just kick it off. So from the point of view of Alex, particularly in 2021, 2022, there was, I think, a broader and stronger Maxi community. But I think that the innovations of the Ordinals protocol has dismantled that to a really significant degree. At first there was resistance, but the fact that I think to date there's been something like over 250 million that miners have received from ordinal inscriptions, and just the amount of community activity and excitement and engagement that it has generated, I think it's pretty absurd, I think, to argue at this point that this has been anything but an incredible positive development for the Bitcoin community and the Bitcoin ecosystem, and has opened the way to conversations that likely about a year ago we would have expected would be much more distant into the future. And so I think that we really, our task is just to continue building, to sustain the momentum we have, to continue building layering solutions, continue building bridges to other chains, and really pursuing the sort of thesis that we had from the very beginning. And Bitcoin as both a value layer, not only of monetary value, but of data, of settlement as well. And so I think the further that we progress and that we see these new fungible token standards and these new innovations take shape, the more that we are moving away from that sort of kind of stagnant period where Bitcoin was a boomer coin and all the fun innovation was happening on other chains. I think now we're really recalibrating, and we're seeing that those most successful experiments on other chains, like some like to say, maybe Ethereum was the sort of test net all along. To have those come home to the security and the mutability of Bitcoin, just at a time when you have the ETFs kicking off, or you have the halving cycle and that narrative taking shape, and we're really positioned to kind of seize this moment and really bring out the full potential of Bitcoin. I think one of the best value propositions in all of crypto is that Bitcoin has a market cap of over 800 billion, and I think less than 0.01% is locked up in DeFi, versus say Ethereum, where I think about 27% is locked up in DeFi in one form or another, because of course you can stake Ethereum to earn. And so just the sort of pursuit of being able to turn Bitcoin into a yield generating asset has the potential to unlock hundreds of billions of dollars flowing into Bitcoin DeFi, which is an enormous opportunity, I think, to seize. And as people wake up to that, we're seeing a dev activity increase, community attention increase, and this creates this kicks off this flywheel of positive reinforcement that we're really excited to be on.
Yeah, maybe I could jump in on that.
Yeah, personally. Oops,
Oh, sorry, guys. Yeah, I was just gonna say I completely agree with the guys at Alex. I mean, like the whole idea with what's being built on Bitcoin is that it does require a strong community to continue to defend. And I mean, like when it comes to crypto and it comes to Bitcoin, it is a bit of propaganda warfare. So as long as the community is behind what's being built with regards to new innovations on Bitcoin, whether that's settlement layers, whether that's roll-ups onto Bitcoin, whether that's native script utility cases using opcodes and stuff like that. It all kind of comes down to how much community backing you've got to kind of protect what's being built. And I think having the miners supporting this, and making sure that there's sufficient interest post 2040 to keep the miners online and keep the hash pointed at Bitcoin, then it's all going to be all right. But it very much is like propaganda warfare. And I mean, just having been through the scaling wars, the users and the community have a lot of say. The user activated soft fork for pushing back on SegWit 2x, which was just a simple upgrade to 2 megabytes per block instead of 1 megabyte. There was a lot of community pushback, and there was half of the Bitcoin community was supporting, let's just go to 2 megabytes. That's fine. Like we can handle it. It's going to be okay. And then the other half were saying like, hell no, we're not touching that. And you had like the half that was for the increase was very much for they were pro business. It had backing from Coinbase, it had backing from BitPay, I think it had backing from like a lot of the actual real world utility for Bitcoin in terms of like using it as peer-to-peer electronic cash and using it as a means of payment, and not purely just this like speculative asset, which I think it'll always be in some ways. But I think as long as the community is backing the builders that are innovating and the new use cases, and that community's got to be both users that are using it, it's got to be miners that are mining it, and it's going to have to be, in some ways, you got to get some of the devs on board as well. If there's a sufficient pushback on what's being built from certain interest groups, such as the main contributors to Bitcoin, it can cause this like hostile dynamic, which I would hate to see, because I'm super hyped to see that people are actually building on Bitcoin again. And like I said earlier, it was fun. It became boomery, but now it's fun again. So just keep making it fun. If Bitcoin's not fun, it has that risk of it kind of just becoming stagnant. And I think what's being built here is what can help the security in the long term by providing this additional utility, whether that's real world assets, whether that's loan and lending and borrowing platforms, or whether that's just NFTs and games and fun cool shit that you can put onto Bitcoin. Do it. I think what we've seen though is that like Lightning didn't really work so well. It's still not exactly the greatest platform. So I think everyone's kind of finding alternative ways to build on Bitcoin. Lightning sucked. Bitcoin's great. What else can we do? How can we keep going? And I think seeing all these different multi-chain and omni-chain layers kind of looking at Bitcoin and building across it and adding new utility, man, it's fun again. So yeah, I'm hyped up.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. Coming from somebody that went to the first Ordinals meetup back at ETH Denver last year, there originally was like a lot of resistance, kind of bringing over EVM compatible capabilities to Bitcoin, as well as any other like omni-chain capability. A lot of the maxis had a lot of pushback. Anything with the wallet connect, they were against. Even the Ordinals core developers, to be honest, too. And we launched Multibit back in May, so before there was really any hype about Bitcoin or Ordinals. And I think people started to understand the value when we started working with other BRC native projects, and kind of seeing their excitement and like the value add coming from Multibit, because now their assets are basically being traded more. There's like a unique arbitrage opportunity on multiple chains for traders, and we've gotten like a lot of adoption, honestly, and we're just really happy. There's been such a great reaction from all these Bitcoin native projects.
Yeah, and I think we're still just at the early days for this new technology. And as to what you're kind of saying about there being some like division, I see that sometimes in the crypto space, especially like even meme communities, talk about being the #1 meme and all the rest. It's competitive sometimes. But I think we all need to realize that it's a blue ocean, especially with some of this technology and some of these new ecosystems. So we don't really need to be so competitive. We can definitely find solutions, I think, working together. I think these bridge technologies are really helping the conversation, I hope, and that we can offload some of the system to other layers. So it just takes a little time for these new technologies to kind of feel themselves out, and then for all the infrastructure to be built out. And I think that's the stage that we're at now, is getting the liquidity to the right places, because the first stage is creating this brand new liquidity. Satoshi's trading at a higher value now for the first time ever. That just created new money. So that's a money multiplier. And now we need to give people something to do with this money. And why not multiply it some more through a borrowing and lending mechanism? But then also be able to transfer that over to other networks and making it more liquid than the Bitcoin network would allow you to. Then that helps you move that money faster and hopefully multiply it even further. So all of these are like essential components to like the underlying nature of our whole monetary system, which I think is pretty amazing and brings the conversation back to what is Bitcoin and what is its essential core function. And I think at the end of the day, we're all still servicing that same original mentality, which is it serves as a currency. Like that's the next stage of currencies, these money multipliers on it.
Interesting. I just wanted to bring in, sorry guys, I just want to bring in Gem Master and Mr. Block, because I think you guys have some really interesting and localized insights from the markets that you're in, Turkey and I guess like the greater Chinese market. Like just kind of curious, in both of the countries and the areas that you're in, like is there a very unique way that Bitcoin is seen? Obviously, we talked about on the developer side and more sort of broadly the sort of promise that Bitcoin has now that it's getting back into vogue, I guess, after being sort of outside for a bit. What is it, the same kind of feeling in the markets that you're in? Is Bitcoin seen as like a boomer coin, or is it sort of the main entry point for developers and for people who are also buying into crypto projects?
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, I think in Asia, especially, BRC20 inscription Ordino has been going crazy. And I think one could argue that it was pushed by kind of the Chinese speaking country that were pushing BRC20 Ordino that much. I remember when I made my first Ordino video. Back then, Ordino Walla and Unisat were just starting last year, and then most people, I think most of my friends in the States don't know about it, and haven't even tried to buy it, because most of the inscription and Ordino were doing OTC. There weren't really a front end market for you to buy them. Most people that minted were doing these OTC on the WeChat group, and through there to buy ORD and Sats and Pepe. I think those were three most traded BRC20 when it was early days, and and it was really the Chinese exchange that listed him. I don't think any U.S. exchange, even today, has listed any BRC20. I may be wrong, but I don't think any has listed. It started from all the Asian exchanges that start supporting it. So I think the back to your question in regard to kind of the what Asian market look into. I think they have been actively supporting. Like for example, I'm in Taiwan, and then Taiwan there is a few VC. One's called the Sora Venture, and they've been, I think, dedicating their a majority of their fund investing into the Bitcoin market, such as the Ordino wallet, the Turds, and a lot of these new project that's building specifically on top of Bitcoin and on the sidechain or innovating, taproots. Yeah, and I think at Curve, what we look at this is also the main reason why we wanted to work with Zeta Chain, because I think it's also that same feeling, where when Ordino was going crazy in Asia, most of the Westerner retail don't know what's going on, right? And the same thing happens with DeFi Maxi like us, where none of the dexes support BRC20, and it was all kind of very grassroots. People moved to Bitcoin chain and then try to figure out how to build it. So we decided as one of the, I think, the first blue chip project that uh, decided to take that initiative and devote our time into developing and support and finding ways to support Bitcoin assets and obviously Bitcoin native Bitcoin itself. So I think soon we'll be able to see Bitcoin trading on Curve through Bitcoin network via Zeta chain. Yeah, thank you.
I can also take in for this question. When I share first Bitcoin projects and like my first projects, I share it in Alex Labs. And when I first share on my Twitter account, a lot of projects, a lot of people in Turkey asked me like how can I buy it, because in that time there was no Jax listing on Alex. And yeah, I take a video on on my YouTube channel how to buy it. I show the people how to use Xverse wallet or Hero wallet, and like I said, a lot of people even don't do it, and they just buy it mostly on the Jax. Like I think the first listing it was MXC, and yeah, in Turkey actually it's very early. Like even in the development side, like I am working with almost every projects in Turkey, like, but there is almost no projects on Bitcoin network, and because people don't know exactly in Turkey, people actually just like the hype on Bitcoin. For example, I shared also some meme tokens on Bitcoin, and it's raised well too, and it takes people attention in Turkey. But in the development side, I can say it's very early, because in Turkey people mostly know Binance Smart Chain, Avalanche, Solana, like that networks. But I always say people in Turkey and in Europe, Bitcoin ecosystem will grow. And as you know, after the taproot upgrade, the Bitcoin network is more suitable and more fast and more security. And but I think it will grow, because as you know, Bitcoin never hacked. a lot of projects like hacking and also doing more things. And yes, in I can say this like in Turkey and for other similar countries. Uh, this is like very early stage, like and the Bitcoin networks maybe growing slowly to other next because a lot of chains, as you know, there is only hype gone and is hype come and then gone. And but in Bitcoin there is nothing like that because if you check, for example, also like Alex Labs, like it's always growing, like never stopping. But if you check other networks projects, like their hype just is came and then gone. People and community always change, but Bitcoin community is always standing, like never lefting and never stopping to support the Bitcoin ecosystem and the projects. Yeah, I think in Turkey also, like I said, I am working with also some venture capitals, and they're starting to invest BRC20 tokens, and it's good to see that. And I think after that, also there will be more developer on Bitcoin in Turkey and in Europe, and people start building. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Cool, great. Always great to get a broad international sort of flavor on what's going on. So thanks guys for the insight. Just stepping back a little bit because there was a really interesting point. I'm sorry, I forget who made it, but comparing the amount of tokens, the percentage of tokens locked up in DeFi on Ethereum versus Bitcoin. Bitcoin being around, I think, 1 or 2%, and Ethereum being around one quarter of the tokens. I'm just curious, like, what you guys think, and whether I think obviously that's going to change, right? The amount of liquidity that's going into Bitcoin, and obviously multi-chain solutions that and Bitcoin smart contract products that we're talking about and that we're actually building on folks on this call. But just curious, like how long do you think it's going to take for the tide to turn, and realistically, what kind of level can we expect in terms of, like, I guess, DeFi adoption on Bitcoin? So how long is it going to take for the tide to turn, and realistically, can we expect adoption of DeFi on Bitcoin to be at the same level that it's at on Ethereum? Question to you guys all.
Sure. So just to kick it off, for us, we wouldn't necessarily pick out a timeline. We are certain that it's an inevitability, but the sort of time frame, whether it's a matter of months or years, there are multiple factors we can control that'll sort of determine. Our point of view is that everything is heading in the right direction for it to occur much sooner than I think we expected it to when we launched in January of 2022. I think particularly with the Bitcoin ETF, although I think obviously from crypto Twitter there's a bit of a disappointment that price has sagged a bit in the aftermath. That's just short-term noise. But with this, we are already seeing major financial institutions and asset managers in the US becoming increasingly comfortable with Bitcoin as an asset class. And a major reason for that is one, that Bitcoin offers diversification, which is key to any portfolio. Bitcoin has sort of drivers all of its own, unique from, say, equity or from bond markets, as well as the fact that prior to the BTF, a lot of people don't understand that these pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, they have it in their mandate that they can only invest in, say, SEC approved instruments. They don't have the legal infrastructure to, say, hold the Bitcoin wallet that holds Bitcoin. So we are progressively having these large institutional players who control really an ocean of trillions of dollars become more familiar and comfortable with Bitcoin. And really what we see as the next step would be, if you have a Bitcoin ETF, it's how can you make Bitcoin a yield generating asset? And the reason that we haven't seen Bitcoin DeFi to date is for the very clear reason that Bitcoin, the L1, is not a smart contract layer. Bitcoin is a payment network, but payment is instantaneous finance. Whereas finance itself, it's really how you move value over time. And so, if you pay a car with cash, that's an instantaneous transaction. The moment that you are financing it and you agree to 7% interest over 3 years, that is a legal contract for the movement of that value over time. And to do that on blockchain, to transfer legal contracts over, that takes the form of smart contracts. And so smart contracts you can't have on the native Bitcoin L1. That's why, like Alex, for example, we're built on the Stacks L2, which does have fully expressive smart contracts through Clarity that share consensus with Bitcoin through proof of transfer. And so as the sort of next step is what we see Bitcoin as a yield generating asset. And the numbers are actually are pretty dramatic. I think Bitcoin, the total market cap, it's if its market cap is 800 billion, I think WBTC is like 5 billion. So you're maybe looking at like 1%. Solana, it's about 10% is in DeFi. Ethereum is about a quarter. So it's hundreds of billions of dollars in Bitcoin that are currently just sitting as a store of value that can be put to work, and it can be put to work through borrow lend mechanisms. It can be put to work through swapping for emerging project BRC20 tokens. It can be put to work through participating in IDOs, such as Alex has a multi-chain launchpad where people can participate in IDOs directly from their Bitcoin wallet with a one-click transaction. And so as we continue to build these use cases, ordinals and NFTs, new non-fungible token standards on top of BRC20, we are increasingly transforming Bitcoin into this financial instrument that generates yield and isn't just sort of kept in the vault. And so, as far as timeline, it could be months, it could be 1-2 years, it could be longer, but we always approach this taking the sort of a long view. And I think it's very well stated that Bitcoin is an instrument for transferring money from impatient people to patient people. I think if you were to poll Bitcoin, people who have held Bitcoin at one point or another, the biggest regret is that they didn't hold longer. And I think we'll continue to see that narrative play out into the future. I absolutely believe in my heart of hearts that 67K is not the all-time high in the history of Bitcoin. That we're going to see values far exceed that. That Bitcoin, for all intents and purposes, is already effectively more valuable than gold, which is a 10 trillion market cap, which would place Bitcoin at around 500K for a coin, just for starters. And I think progressively, as the rest of the world wakes up to this new superior financial technology that we're all very fortunate to be very early to be able to grasp, whereas a tremendous amount of people don't, which is why these Twitter spaces, talking to friends and family, education is such a critical part of mass adoption. We will see discomfort with and adoption of Bitcoin steadily increase. And Bitcoin finance will be a byproduct of that. It's simply inevitable because that's what drives the actual economy. The dollars in circulation is something like 30-40 trillion. The amount of money in debt, just the national debt alone of the US is over 35 trillion. When you look at credit card debt, corporate debt, global debt, it's in the hundreds of trillions. And so, really Bitcoin derivatives and Bitcoin finance does have the potential to far exceed its use case as a payment network, being a financial network. And that is the Bitcoin economy that we are working towards building.
I kind of want to jump in here. I love everything you're saying. And I think that's been the narrative for a very long time of what Bitcoin's going to do in that huge kind of moving large amounts of money, serving the financial industry. But one thing that on the other side of the coin, what I think is happening now with inscriptions is we're bringing, like we said, the fun into this DeFi space. I think the GameFi, I'll talk about how, that's going to be a way I think that we can get the average person into the DeFi realm. I think inscriptions are a good use case, a good example as well of kind of a gamification feature for tokens, essentially a store of value. And then a lot of them offer other things you can do. And now you can also stake those, borrow and lend those. It's creating like an easier on ramp for people that maybe don't know how institutional investing works, and it gives them the opportunity to participate in some of these systems. So I see that's one way where we can kind of attract the masses and get like a viral growth. I think these institutions we've seen take very long time to go through all the hoops and regulations, whereas the community can develop very quickly. Of course, you need to give them an easy on ramp, but once that's there, we have things that can go viral and bring in a lot of, hopefully get a lot of that Bitcoin just held by the average people, not institutions. We want to get that staked, and participating in borrowing and lending would be great.
Yeah, and just as a quick response on our IDO launchpad, the first project we launched was Ords Games, token ORDG. We're incredibly bullish GameFi, and then just as you said, that sort of mass adoption. And this was a project that their raise goal was 2.5 Bitcoin. And by the end, they were 81x oversubscribed. There was over 192 Bitcoin that was logged into our platform for that IDO. And so the demand is absolutely there. And I think it's one of the things that people are kind of sleeping on. We absolutely agree that GameFi and inscriptions are a great way to introduce Bitcoin to the masses and engage people and capture their attention. Thank you for bringing that up. Great point.
Cool. Any more thoughts? I mean, I think it was such a comprehensive answer that there's not really much more to add, to be fair, on the DeFi side. But does anybody have any other thoughts that they want to add on Bitcoin DeFi? I guess one thing, and maybe this is just kind of semantics, but is it bringing Bitcoin into DeFi, or is it bringing DeFi to Bitcoin? How do you guys kind of think about that?
Well, I just wanted to jump in. I think users are really interested in interacting with native Bitcoin, not wrapped Bitcoin. Not something that can potentially like have to hard fork. People want to interact with actually native Bitcoin assets. And like the inscription market, I don't know if you guys know anything about rare sats, but assigning value to specific satoshis clearly has value. And I mean, there's a whole market for rare sat hunters kind of assigning value to like satoshis that can be like historical, or kind of like after a certain like halving or something. Like basically there's like a whole list of different rarities. And I mean, like the whole rare coin market in the real world is obviously a very big market as well. So it kind of makes sense for Bitcoin. And I feel like a lot of that kind of inspired ordinals, assigning value to specific things on Bitcoin and building off of that. And that's really happening now with the whole BRC ordinals wave. And basically at multi-bit, like allowing liquidity into that allows users more flexibility. So they're not really stuck within a liquid asset, but can still rely on like Ethereum, for example's proof of stake consensus and the smart contract, basically the trustless nature of the smart contract capabilities, without really having to interact with like a derivative like wrapped Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's actually a fantastic point to make. And obviously at Zeta Chain, that's one of the things that we enable with the partners that we work with. There's no wrapping, and it's very much a native Bitcoin experience, which I think, that's a pretty key piece, I think, absolutely, to enlarging the developer community and obviously getting users to do different kinds of things using Bitcoin and on Bitcoin smart contract projects. So thanks for bringing that up. I didn't shell us too hard, because I think the conversation is actually great, and that's what everyone's here for. So yeah, okay. What about just, I mean, obviously DeFi, and we talk about Bitcoin, and obviously ETFs. It's all very much around finance and investment options. I guess. What are the other areas that you guys are out the building? I think we kind of touched on some of this, but what are the other areas that you think are very much prime for Bitcoin dApps? Are we going to see? Is it going to be gaming? Is there a social side? Like, just kind of curious from the position that you guys are in the trenches, building and obviously doing partnerships. Like, what are the kinds of Bitcoin dApps and Bitcoin products that you think are going to come out beyond the obvious, DeFi kind of projects that we're already seeing?
I mean, I personally want to see more infrastructure allowing users to essentially earn native Bitcoin assets completely like on the Bitcoin network. Like the only way to really do it so far is to be a validator of Bitcoin. That's the only way, and eventually that use case will run out in 2040. So we need more applications like games for users to essentially like put in work and be able to earn native assets in Bitcoin. Not just games, but obviously other incentive mechanisms as well. I think they have to be easy to understand too, because the consumer kind of like user base is very limited, and especially with like Ethereum, Solana people joining like the BRC ecosystem. Even they are kind of not super knowledgeable on how it all works, essentially. And the infrastructure is just being built now, so the people in here are building it.
Absolutely. I'd say infrastructure is absolutely huge in this stage and paving the way for a Bitcoin economy in the future. I'd also like to say I totally agree. It's great to keep things as native and as close to the Bitcoin L1 as possible, but also having the recognition that one is that we value Bitcoin for its immutability, that it's so resistant to change. So, Alex, we are conservative when it comes to the Bitcoin L1, but we're progressive when it comes to building on top of Bitcoin. And for example, if we had to say what perhaps people can interpret as something of a limitation, say with Bitcoin, Bitcoin maximizes for security and decentralization, but with scalability, it's a bit different. Right now, it's physically impossible for us to onboard 1 billion users directly onto the Bitcoin network. The network, it simply isn't capable of handling that. And also the Bitcoin L1, it isn't programmable. So yes, we want to make, say, inscriptions and BRC20 tokens accessible to a mass public. But if you're trading BRC20s entirely on the L1 through, say, partially signed Bitcoin transactions, there is a higher barrier to entry there on the technical side versus a lot of people who come from Web 2 who are familiar with, say, like a one-click experience or something like what you would see on a centralized exchange. That's why in May, Alex, we really made a hard pivot toward the L1, and we launched the B20, the first BRC20 order book DEX, where people can take BRC20 tokens, they can bridge them onto a smart contract L2 that still has its finality on Bitcoin itself. And now they can take those BRC20 tokens and they can place order limits, they can place market limits, they can have bar charts, and they can have an experience similar to what you see on a centralized exchange, but without taking that custodial risk, while still having open source smart contracts, while still having your key, your coins or keys. And so, it's these abilities that we look towards, and really making it seamless for users, so that they can connect a Bitcoin wallet, and we see a future where we abstract away that sort of complexity, so that users can come and very intuitively interact with Bitcoin, very intuitively buy orderable NFTs, trade BRC20 tokens, without necessarily having to think in the background what blockchain are they on, What matters to them is that it's secure, that it's easy to use, that it's efficient, and as much as possible that we can keep that on Bitcoin, that we can build on top of it, I think is encouraging and accelerating that mass adoption. And in terms of other dApps we see anything that's been successful on other chains, from decentralized identity apps to decentralized trading bots, to decentralized forums, to GameFi, of course, being major, borrow lend platforms, because again, you have a lot of people who hold Bitcoin and who would be interested in borrowing against that versus selling their Bitcoin. I think these are all really key utilities that can incentivize people to participate, engage, have fun with Bitcoin, and lower that barrier to entry, so that it's very much similar to a Web2 experience, and very easy for them to use. We think that's key for mass adoption.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in on that. I think that methodology is probably the right one. You know, with the iteration of Bitcoin we have today, it's just, for many people coming in, you know, they're sold this image that, you know, Bitcoin is for everyone. It's, you know, for the whole world. But yeah, if you are doing a ton of on-chain transactions in the way that you would have to, you know, building them with script, it's just it prices out a lot of people. You know, maybe for hardcore Bitcoin degens that can afford $5-10 fees every time they do a single interaction, it's great. Good for you guys for being in a, you know, wealthy country. But yeah, if you're in kind of a third world country or a developing nation, or whatever you want to call it, not exactly the most, you know, enticing value proposition to say, hey, come join Bitcoin, where you can spend more than you spend on food in a week in a single transaction. So I think you gotta figure out a way to do it via these L2s. However, you know, I think if that were ever to change, if the Bitcoin network does eventually need to upgrade to a higher block size limit, there may be this opportunity in the future. Probably not going to happen anytime soon, where you could do more with script. And you know, we've seen that on other chains. Like some of you guys may have used revoke.cash. Great way to revoke approved transactions on Ethereum and other EVM chains. That developer, Roscoe Callis, he did an internship at Bitcoin.com years ago. Really brilliant young man. And he actually wrote something called Cash Script. Now, this was built for Bitcoin Cash, but it's something that could be used by any Bitcoin family chain. So that includes Bitcoin as an L1. So it's basically it's kind of a high level programming language, somewhat similar to Solidity. So if you've ever developed in Solidity, it's kind of an easy thing to start using, and then it actually compiles down into script for you. So potentially, were some intrepid developer ever interested in doing things 100% on layer one, you could easily take something like Cash Script and build it out for Bitcoin or any other UTXO chain and run script transactions. And then you actually can do smart contracting on layer one. You can do covenants, you can do you know, transfers with timeouts, you can do vaults. Yeah, there's some like really interesting use cases, including even some DeFi. So there are people on other flavors of Bitcoin that are building layer one DeFi. So it can be done. It's just it can't be done currently on Bitcoin, given the limitations with the block size and the fees, which is, I think, the large reason why we're seeing so many great teams and developers come together to say, well, you know, we want the underlying security of Bitcoin. We want the sats, but we want that utility and that user experience to be, you know, chef's kiss. Nice. So it's got to be, at the moment, probably via some sort of layer two that hopefully settles back onto Bitcoin.
Yeah, and I'll jump in and agree with what everyone's saying here. That, but also kind of chime in again on the getting the liquidity to the right places, because Bitcoin traditionally is one of those networks, one of those assets that people hold, and sometimes just sit on it in the bank for a very long time and don't do anything with it. So with this new system, hopefully it draws more attention and it makes it more entertaining and easier for people to get that Bitcoin that's just sitting there and get it into a place like Tonka Finance, into inscription, where they can earn some extra value out of that. And then now that value that they've created can be on a liquid network, where then it can be used and traded by people that actually want to do something with that value, underlying value. So I think that's where we're seeing the network get to at this point, is just connecting all the different networks and the liquidity to the right places. But yeah, we're going to see a lot more, I think, innovation with what can you do with these BRC20s and what can you do with inscriptions. I think we're just beginning the journey. We're going to be very surprised in the future with some other potential better use cases that it serves besides just the currency, which I think is already a great use case. And just taking over that market alone is huge.
Yeah, I just want to add, I mean, up until now, I mean, everything that's been built on Bitcoin is essentially centralized. Like anybody that has been a part of Mt. Gox and put their money in there, like there's never been a trustless layer or an L2 really that has smart contract interoperability until now, or cross-chain compatibility, for example, where transactions are executed on another chain. So I think this is really an important step for Bitcoin, and kind of like aligning with Satoshi's vision of being completely decentralized. Up until now, we kind of had to trust other people and intermediaries to operate on the Bitcoin network. So I think this is a huge evolution.
Yeah, along those lines, we're talking about how the early days of Bitcoin, and I think it was miners and technical people kind of figuring things out, and it was much more collaborative. So I think one thing I've learned, even just doing this talk and from talking to the community more, is I think that's probably one of the first things that it needs is a community, and maybe multiple communities within this BRC20 movement, but a little bit more organized maybe, because again, we don't want to be combative or competitive. We want to work together to find solutions that everyone's happy with. Because there's going to be so many different ways you can use this technology, and we want to make sure everyone's happy and we'll all get a better result. So yeah, meme coins. Maybe long story short, I see more meme coins and things that are easier to kind of sell on the on the public. Other than borrowing and lending can be boring. If it's just stake some tokens and we'll give you some more tokens, it can be kind of boring to the average person. So that's where inscriptions add a layer of fun, and that's where I see GameFi and other use cases being a driving factor in DeFi, because we need to make it a little more exciting, a little more fun to get the average user, which again is at the roots of what Bitcoin is. It's supposed to be driven by the users, not driven by the big money financial institutions. So in order to get that movement back, we need, I think, more organized communities working together, and then also some more fun and easy way for people to get involved.
Yeah, as well as like users actually having ownership of their assets now. When doing DeFi on Bitcoin, I think is very like a huge topic. Being able to like rely on an L2 or like a cross-chain compatible network to execute a transaction for them completely trustlessly. And again, like up until now, it's really hasn't been done.
Yeah, it's a great vehicle. These GameFi is a great way for people to not even realize what they're doing, and then when they're doing it, they're like, "Oh, that's easy," and then they can tell their friends about it, and that's what it takes to go viral. Which I think we're getting there with all our different experiments on other networks, and I think Bitcoin's ready to get the most out of everything we've learned with how to grow out these new technologies and ecosystems.
Yes, I also must mention something. As you know, like in Bitcoin is totally is in Web3, and the ecosystem actually seems like a growing slowly, and projects seems like not too much. But as you know, in all the networks, in all the blockchain networks, like almost all of them is working like a Web2 company, and they have also building their all the products, stakes, and other projects. But in Bitcoin, there is not something like that. That's why all the people in here is building their projects with their own team, and not getting help from the main blockchain team. And that's why it seems like growing slowly, but after the such approved Bitcoin ETF and all the big news on Bitcoin, I think the Bitcoin ecosystem, and in the future we will see also more projects, like also in the gaming. Like right now there is no gaming projects on Bitcoin network, but in the future when the Bitcoin become more fastly and more usable, we will also see a lot of GameFi projects on the Bitcoin network. And I also agree with the Tonka Finance. Like I think there will be one big meme token on Bitcoin network and listed on all the exchanges like Binance, Coinbase, and then it will be more people will come to Bitcoin network and explore the Bitcoin projects, and it will help for everyone because in the Bitcoin network, the community is everything because uh, like everything is Web3, and there is no one company doing marketing and all the stuff in the social media. And but if we support the Bitcoin ecosystem, and everyone will also see soon Bitcoin is the only truth because we will see more down. Uh, when when every token down, people trust Bitcoin and will trust Bitcoin ecosystem projects. Yes, this will take time because always there is one new chain, one blockchain chain is coming. Yes, they have very nice last technology products, but like I said, Bitcoin is like forever, and even or my mom, my father knows Bitcoin, and even they are trusting Bitcoin, but they don't know anything about all the tokens. And yeah, in the when the Web3 will develop more, and uh, also when there will be no more community and more developers on Bitcoin, it will grow most fastly. And like I said, I am thinking we are still very early stage, and also this Zeta chain also like great example for the next blockchain projects because it's like exists all crypto chains in one place, and you can combine to using your uh, blockchain networks, and then you can come again to Bitcoin network. And yes, like I said, we are like very still early, and I am believing like there will be some projects and maybe one meme token. Maybe it's not a great example, but as you know, the meme tokens are the marketing of the blockchains networks. And yeah, I am thinking like that. We are very early, and in the smart contracts on Bitcoin, for example, there is no developers, almost no developers on the Bitcoin network. But I think in maybe 1 or 2 years, this will be more. And also, like, it's good to see there is more projects on the Bitcoin and the venture capitals and other QS also always asking me, do you know any projects on Bitcoin for the investment? Because investing in Bitcoin projects and Bitcoin ecosystem is more trustable because I know this token will be there in forever, or this ordinal NFT will be there forever. Yeah, thank you so much also for this amazing space.
And guys, so the last one we did, we went on for 2 hours, and I think we're about an hour and 15 minutes in. So I'm happy to run longer. I've got a couple of questions I still want to ask based on the conversation. So I think we'll go from there, and then if you guys have other things that you want to add, feel free to. So we've discussed what makes Bitcoin interesting. in today's age. We've discussed how it's evolved in the last few years. We've discussed the challenges of building, of developers building on Bitcoin. We've discussed the solutions for doing that. We've discussed some of the products that are going to come through. One thing we haven't discussed in so much detail is the sort of time frame that's gonna happen at, essentially. And I guess a lot of people will be quite curious this year, you know, what's going to happen. Obviously, we've had the year's begun with ETFs, and it's been a big announcement, and there's been a lot of expectation. But just on a broader level, in terms of development and also other areas, you know, how do you guys see Bitcoin playing out this year and over the next few years too?
As far as say major developments for this year, I think as we approach the Bitcoin halving in April, there'll be you know, a lot of media discussion around it, which again, I think the more that people hear the word Bitcoin, it's kind of like advertising. They say it isn't the first or second time, but usually the seventh or 12th time that you see an ad that you pay attention. I think there's still a huge mass audience of people who need to hear Bitcoin 30, 50 times before they finally cue in and kind of want to learn a bit more about it. So I think the Bitcoin halving will be an important narrative. If we look at, you know, Bitcoin's rainbow chart, at least historically, it would predict that we should see likely another bull run or all-time high sometime in 2025. Of course, you know, past returns don't always guarantee future results, but that's a possibility. I would say on the L2 side, two things that at Alex we're excited to see happening this year is that Stacks will be releasing what they're describing as the Nakamoto release sometime in April before the halving. For those who aren't familiar, like Stacks, it currently operates at Bitcoin block times, which, you know, obviously for DeFi users who are used to the experience with other chains, it can be slow, waiting 15, 30 minutes for a transaction to confirm. With the Nakamoto release, Stacks will be bringing down its block times to about 5 seconds, which is comparable with the Ethereum L1. So I think that will be a huge transformation in terms of the L2 user experience on Bitcoin. And Stacks will also be releasing this year what they are terming SBTC. And the significance of that is obviously there are lots of different kinds of wrapped Bitcoin. There's a WBTC, which is the largest by market cap on Ethereum, but that is governed by a very, say, centralized entity. On say the Liquid network, there's a federated Bitcoin peg in, peg out with about 60 fixed federated validators. And you know what Stacks is doing with SBTC is to create the most trust minimized representation of Bitcoin that we've yet seen on a smart contract chain. So with SBTC, it will be an open and dynamic federation that will be really a remarkable experience in seeing just how trust minimized that we can make bringing Bitcoin over to an L2. Of course, you know, ideally, it would be great if we could do it completely trustlessly through smart contracts, but Bitcoin L1, it's not a smart contract chain. And so the solution that we can, you know, create at the moment is a design that really minimizes trust as much as possible. So, you know, these infrastructural elements, a really trust minimized way of bringing over Bitcoin, as well as that dramatic increase in L2 transaction speeds that are still settled directly on the Bitcoin L1, I think might be really big improvements and will contribute to that narrative of having and these sort of expectations of there being another big bull cycle in 2025, as well as in the macroeconomic sense. We've seen the Fed this year officially pause rate hikes. They've predicted 3 rate cuts. As interest rates come down, this is obviously bullish for long duration assets such as crypto and tech stocks, because you have all this global money that will continue chasing high returns, and they're more likely to shift into speculative assets as interest rates come down. And so I think, again, we have multiple factors on the L2 layer, on the L1 layer, on the macroeconomic scene, in terms of this overall media narrative of the Bitcoin halving and the expectations of all-time highs that are creating this kind of perfect storm that might possibly lead to some, what some even prominent bank analysts are considering a super cycle, where we could see Bitcoin not only hit an all-time high, it could exceed 100K, 200K, and with the additional liquidity that ETFs allow to flow into spot Bitcoin market, it could really blow our minds. If anything, Bitcoin has already done that with each cycle, and I don't see any reason for that to pausing now. Again, we don't know necessarily when. It could be delayed until 2026, 2027. You never know what might happen globally. If there's an outbreak, say, of a war, God forbid, then you might have a shift of people into more risk-averse assets. But the long-term narrative is secure. That and, human civilization is driven by technology. Bitcoin and blockchain is the superior technology for the settlement of transfer of wealth, not the traditional legacy finance we have now, which still does things the way that they were done in 1920, 1933. It's kind of ridiculous. And so, superior technology will win in the long run. And that's why I think, again, Bitcoin is an instrument for transferring money from those who are impatient, from those who are patient. And so, hold long term. And I do believe that we stand to be rewarded, not financial advice. Thank you.
Well, when I heard that question, I heard kind of when moon. And I think the technology, like you were kind of saying, we don't know, but maybe I take a little more optimistic approach. And I think one thing it was missing at the beginning, at the outset, there was some pump, the declined a little bit. Now we've had a more recent pump. I think it just didn't have the network it needed to go viral. And I think that's what has just been developed now with all the different bridges to different networks, getting in front of the correct buyers, connecting all these buyers and sellers for these new inscriptions and this new technology. So I think it could be any day now, or it could be a year from now, it could be 3 months from now. I think it's just one viral concept away from really bringing a lot more attention, a lot more liquidity, a lot of other projects that are going to be just similar to that. And like we said, I still think there's a lot more innovation here. I think we're just scratching the surface, and we're going to discover more use cases. So we can't really predict. It's we couldn't guess ordinals were coming. It was just discovered. So we're kind of playing in that territory where it's really difficult to say when, because it could be any time now. But the good thing is, that's what we're building, is the infrastructure it needs in order to go viral when the right idea comes. Because if it went, if it was the right idea earlier, it just wasn't connected to enough people to grow large enough, hit that, critical capacity. So I think we're there now, and that's what we're really excited to be a part of.
Maybe I could sneak in. The normies aren't really aware of BRC20. They're not aware of ordinals. They're not aware of even NFTs. Their knowledge of NFTs is, Paris Hilton on, I don't know if it was Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon or one of the Jimmys. Pretty limited to like monkey JPEGs, and that's kind of it. And I think the current news cycle, with the talking heads at CNN and MSNBC and whoever else, it's they're getting Bitcoin news from the bankers right now. They're getting Bitcoin news from OG KOLs who are no longer, I would say, who are not exactly progressive Bitcoin development. So they're not exactly the type of people that are promoting BRC20s or ordinals. They're going to talk about Bitcoin as if it's a new asset class that's better than gold. And that's going to be the narrative for the next year here. What I would hope to see from this community is emerging alternative key opinion leaders who are able to explain clearly and succinctly the value proposition for the developments being made on Bitcoin through either layer 2s or ordinals or BRC20s or any of these other great things that are being built. But they need to be brought to the retail so that they're aware that that Bitcoin's more than just digital gold. Digital gold was the old narrative. It was digital cash for a bit, then it was digital gold, and now it's something else. It's a settlement layer, it's a secure chain, it's a developer friendly chain where people can innovate still. And yes, it is digital gold for many, and it may always be. However, there is that need to explain the utilitarian purpose for it, because I think for a lot of retail, that's still what a lot of people look for. Is they say, okay, well, what's Bitcoin? Why is it 10x better than my S&P 500 index fund or whatever? I think this is where the ability to explain these, I would say, kind of nerdy, somewhat techie concepts to normal people is going to really stand out. And I think these types of conversations, these types of X spaces and stuff like that, it's what's going to help refine and sharpen that sword, so that when the right KOLs emerge and communicate succinctly to retail and to these talking head media folks, and they replace the OG pump kind of folks that are just talking about digital gold and ETFs and really kind of laying down that base layer, someone's got to add that sugar and spice. And I think it's folks in this community that are going to stand out and really explain this stuff to retail, and explain that Bitcoin's more than just boomer coin. It's great if you want digital gold, it's great if you want the ETFs, great, have fun with it. But there's also a emerging community that's kind of growing before your eyes. And yeah, I think this is a great path forward for Bitcoin.
Yeah, just to add, there's a lot of like emerging builders and artists that want to start building on Bitcoin because they want to assign their work or their product with value on top of value. Like I know I have some friends that have like a warehouse of Banksies they collect, and they basically went on like a 2-month like sprint of like basically trying to find a rare Satoshi worth putting the Banksy on, and kind of assigning the ownership to that Satoshi. So I think it's really interesting here, because like when you build something on like an EVM compatible chain, for example, you're essentially minting value and backing it to an asset with value, like creating a pair with Ethereum. What you're doing on Bitcoin is you're assigning value onto a Satoshi that already has value. You're not really creating value out of thin air here, and people are really interested in that kind of angle, I think.
Yeah,
And
I've used that example actually a lot, continuing the gold analogy. That now we just have the capabilities of like gold forges and gold artisans. So you can take what was just a gold nugget, and you can actually make gold jewelry or gold ornamental. Like we all know that has more value, or even with BRC20s like gold coins. And then you have the tech layer, which we haven't even got to yet, where we use golden technology, and we're going to get to that stage, I believe, too, with BRCs or with ordinals inscriptions in the future.
yeah, I don't think people have started to understand that at all. I mean, like some really good artists are coming out there starting to release works on ordinals, and even inscribing their work on like a rare Satoshi that has intrinsic value, that like has a market value of a high price already, and then they're putting their unique pieces on it. And like the same kind of goes with like a minting like a BRC20 token. Like, what is your project about? And kind of allowing users to interact with that, and monetize off that. Like TurtSat, for example, is a great, also another great platform, and they basically launch BRC20 projects for people, and their users can basically get into these rounds really early. I mean, like I know that's like a very general use case, but no, we haven't really seen anything like that with Bitcoin until this year. So
Yeah, I think it's another example of adding some GameFi elements and getting users. I think that's the first thing. So that's why I think I'm really excited to see just easy UI UX. I really like the throwback to the old school like arcade games as well. I think that's a great way to get, especially if there's some boomers still holding the Bitcoin. I think that's a great way to get them to interact with it. Yeah, and get it places more liquid, give everyone else more access to it.
Yeah, as well as like every other chain to now hedge themselves with actual Bitcoin native assets. You know, I mean, like we talked about the digital gold concept. Like anybody that's like read like the Infinite Machine, which kind of is like a book about the starting of Ethereum and how it kind of begins with her in Argentina like being hyperinflated and her bank basically closing her out of her bank account when everybody kind of had a bank run and was trying to withdraw their money and couldn't. So that was the first use case, you know, and now people are actually assigning value to Satoshis and building things on top of the network. So I think this is the next step.
Okay, so end of year, you're thinking that this kind of stuff comes through. Let's have some hard sort of some hard predictions for what we might see. Things, non-obvious things that we might see happening by end of the year.
Non-obvious things. I guess it's
Or
kind of
obvious things. I don't know.
okay.
As you like, right?
Well, one, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw another fungible token standard, say like atomicals, or one of these other token standards also take hold and gain really firm popularity. Um, but yeah, I think that would be definitely a major point, and I think we're going to, you know, if you look at where we've come from, you know, I think it was around this time. It's almost been a year, I think, then since Ordinal's protocol was leased. Domo Data then began the BRC20 protocol, and I think mid March. You know, if we were having this call last year, I never would have imagined that, say, like Ordi would have a market cap of well over 1 billion, like it does today. To say nothing of the rest of Ordinal space and BRC20 space. And so I think I'd be pleasantly surprised to see, you know, some of these other standards sort of take hold, um, and and to see, you know, again, increased engagement with GameFi, with NFTs. And you know, this is just really a sort of hope, but of course, I would love to see Bitcoin hit new all-time highs before the end of the year. I think that would be a really great segue into 2025 and could really set the stage for a massive crypto super cycle. And so, you know, kind of fingers crossed for that. But, you know, regardless, we're here for the sort of long term.
Yeah, I personally see more like EVM compatible, Rust compatible, and different layer twos, creating BRC20 pairs and either or integrating the network and other L2s. Yeah, so I really see more people kind of just like how Bitcoin's original use case was hedging yourself against like a government or a country's inflation. Now, building on the Bitcoin network is basically hedging yourself to the proof of work consensus and whatever chain you are on, kind of giving that option.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what comes out, especially with the new bridging and all the things that are going to happen once we get this in front of more eyes. You know, every network is kind of segmented, so I think that's been a big thing, a big movement over the past couple of years in the crypto space. Is a lot more bridging, more access to different networks, which has been great. So yeah, it's just Bitcoin's turn to kind of get involved and get connected to all these other users that you know, like we've kind of talked about, have kind of moved away from Bitcoin. A lot of the users in the past maybe 5 years, maybe even just got Bitcoin just to get over to Ethereum or another network. Whereas in the early days, it was like you went to Bitcoin first, you kind of had some experiences there before moving over to Ethereum. So I think it's great timing to see what's going to happen now, now that it's finally connected to the masses, I think it's a good time to see some new big projects. Yeah, so just excited to see what we can build.
Yeah, I think the bull case here as well is it's not just new folks coming into Bitcoin. It's also dormant Bitcoin holders being reactivated into the Bitcoin community, and kind of maybe they've ignored it for the last 2 years, maybe even 3, and they're just kind of like, yeah, okay, let's see what's going on. And with the ETF news, with potentially the halving, there's kind of a stronger incentive for some of these dormant wallets to say open up their app again. This is something we see in the Bitcoin.com wallet ecosystem all the time. Each cycle, man, it's like when the market starts heating up, a lot of dormant wallets start coming back online and, seeing what's going on. And yeah, I think that becomes this opportunity for them again to talk to their friends and their family and kind of explain what's the latest, in their wallet, what's the latest in the Bitcoin space, what's happening. And I think if there's stuff to talk about outside of just digital gold, we're fighting inflation, we're, a bit of an FU to traditional fiat money, then I think people are going to start taking a look at it from like alternative points of view, from NFTs, from art, from real world assets, from lending and borrowing, from yield bearing assets. And I think if that's all happening on Bitcoin, that creates a lot more of a wider funnel to acquire more people from the new cycle. From the a lot of people talk about crypto or Bitcoin having like the class of 2011, and then there's the class of like 2013, and then there's a class of like 2017, and then there's a class of 2020, and they all kind of join in these like waves, right? And they're usually like market cycle waves, and we see that with traffic to Bitcoin.com, we see that to wallet installs, we see that to dormant users that become reactivated, and suddenly that address is like doing stuff again. So yeah, I think this is going to be an exciting year or two, 2024, 2025. It's the time to kind of be involved, and it's the time to build fast and ship fast and get stuff out and get people excited again. Make sure your team is ready. Make sure that it's very clear what could happen, and make sure you've got plans for the top best case scenario and the bottom worst case scenario. Because if your company or your project isn't built for the highs and it's not built for the lows, there's a huge risk that you may not be there for the next cycle. So you got to build for generations. Don't build for just this top cycle. Don't build for like one bear market. You got to think rainy day funds. You got to think, how am I going to survive the next bear market? Because it's coming. We might be through the worst of this one, but there's going to be another bull cycle, and then guess what? There's going to be another bear cycle, and that's going to keep happening. So yeah, I think you just gotta be on the lookout. I'd love to see as many of these L2s, as many of these different projects continue to exist on Bitcoin years from now. So hope everyone just make sure they've got the right team, right bean counters and finance to make sure that they're going to survive everything. So
Awesome. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Just to toss something out there that might be a little bit from left field, but I would also love to see an increasing narrative of Bitcoin and a really incredible role that it can play in terms of energy infrastructure. And this is something that is really unique to Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, you can actually think of it as a unit of energy. And this is something I like to geek out on because I was, a physics major in college. But like when you think of what have been some of the challenges for renewable energy sources, like you have these vast tracts of deserts where you could put in these like massive fields of solar panels, but then connecting those panels to the main energy grid can be vastly more expensive than installing the panels themselves. Or say there's like a waterfall in the remote Canadian wilderness. And again, there's enormous potential there to harness that energy, but connecting it to the main grid is a huge challenge, as well as what do you do with all the excess energy that it produces. Bitcoin is really remarkable in providing a solution for that, because that massive, solar farm somewhere in the Nevada desert, when it's producing much more energy than the local districts might need, that energy can be used towards Bitcoin mining and generate a very effective yield. and that completely changes what the economics of that energy generation may be. And so I think, especially as the price of Bitcoin increases, this further makes these sorts of remote energy infrastructure projects all the more likely to be financed and built out. And I think that can be really transformative in creating a more robust, a more secure, a more renewable and overall around eco-friendly energy grid. And this is something that, in my view, makes Bitcoin almost miraculous, because this isn't something that can ever be native to, say, a proof of stake system. It is because, Bitcoin is very firmly anchored to the physical realm through proof of work. And so, I would love to see that, take off. And once, those light bulbs go up over people's heads, it'll completely flip upside down this sort of FUD narrative that, Bitcoin wastes more money than the nation of Argentina does in a year, to Bitcoin actually opening the doors for the sort of greenest, most sustainable, most renewable explosion in renewable energy infrastructure that we've yet seen in the modern era. So, that's another one I'd say I really have my fingers crossed. And I think it's only a matter of when. It's not a matter of if. It will happen. The sooner it happens, the better for all of us. And so that's another one I'll throw my hat in the ring for.
Well said. Well said. Very, very great comments from you guys. Thanks so much. Okay, so we're gonna shift gears a little bit and open the conversation up to the audience. So if you're listening to this chat, and hopefully you've been there since the start, but also if you just joined and heard some of the insights and conversation from our panelists, and you want to ask them a question, please make a request to speak, and we will let people in so they can ask questions to the panelists. Okay, I'm not a co-host, so I don't think I can actively actually approve people, so we'll have to wait.
I'm looking for some requests. Jonathan here.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, go ahead and request to be a speaker if you have a Bitcoin question.
Yeah, we would like questions to be on topic. I know last time we had some pretty general questions. So if your question is very general, you won't get to ask it.
You will be skipped if it's a bad question.
Any questions at all? I can't believe there aren't any questions. I mean, we're obviously that comprehensive that there's nothing else to ask.
I gotta say, it was quite thorough, being a fly on the wall here. Let's try Tokyo. Tokyo, you're a speaker. You were hanging out in the request bin for a while. Go ahead and ask a question if you have.
One fact. What do you feel about the programming languages C++ that Bitcoin is built upon, and how do you think it enables more layer twos to actually really build something unique compared to the dynamics of Solidity or Move or other ecosystems? Do you feel it's a little too old-fashioned, or it's actually much more secure or something?
Really, I don't know if anybody else could hear that and understand the question.
Yeah, I think the question was just regarding programming languages for Bitcoin versus Solidity and how that might involve L2s. I'd jump in to say that the stack Alex is built on the Stacks L2. And I think something just notable to say is that the Bitcoin script it's Turing non-complete. And it's actually, a language being Turing non-complete does not necessarily mean it's lesser than. Turing non-complete can often simplify a language in a way that can, prevent potential exploitative measures, say like endless, like while loops and other, and other potential avenues of exploit. So, the Stacks is Alex is built on Stacks, which is an L2 that is coded in Clarity. Clarity is also a Turing non-complete language, and it is what's called a decidable language. And so Clarity, it's broadcast to the blockchain exactly as it's written without having to be compiled in a human readable form. Solidity, which is Turing complete, it has to be compiled and turned into machine code. So it's broadcast to the blockchain as sort of hexadecimals. So when there is an exploit, say with Solidity, it's much more difficult to audit because what's being broadcast isn't in the human readable form versus say with Clarity. So that's just one of the considerations that Alex looked upon in deciding on where to build DeFi on. And I guess that gets into a bit of the sort of nitty gritty. And unless you're a sort of dev, maybe the topic goes a bit over your head. But yeah, I think really, looking at building things from the ground up, Turing complete versus non-complete languages, and of course, there are trade-offs. Obviously, Solidity is much more widely well known and adopted by developers versus, say, some of the nuances they might have to learn in mastering Clarity, for example. But in the long term, when you are prioritizing, say, security and immutability, we feel that it's worthwhile. So I don't think that entirely addresses your question, but I guess those are the 2 cents I'd add to the conversation. Thank you for asking.
That was perfectly answered.
Oh, thank you very much.
Excellent. John, I think we can wrap this up with final thoughts if you want to take it away.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, as Jonathan just said, if you guys have any closing thoughts, I think we've covered a huge amount on this. As I mentioned earlier, we covered, why Bitcoin is the OG, how Bitcoin has developed in recent years, going from, I guess, boomer coin-ish to now being, very much front and center of what's happening in Web3. We talked about ETFs. We talked about the growth of tools to build and develop on the Bitcoin blockchain. We talked about what might be in store coming soon, and the obvious and the less obvious too. So yeah, over to you guys. If there's any sort of closing comments that you want to add, then the floor is yours. But thanks so much for your insights.
Thank you. It was great to be a part of the spaces. Really enjoyed the conversation with all of you. I'd of course would love it to have users follow the Alex Twitter account or join our Discord at discord.g/AlexLab. Again, 2024 will be a big year for Bitcoin and for Bitcoin L2s. And we're really excited to continue to build really the DeFi layer of Bitcoin, connecting the L1 to L2s, connecting, Ethereum and Binance liquidity to Bitcoin. That's infrastructure that we already have built in with the Alex Bridge. And so, yeah, if you have an opportunity, definitely check us out. Yeah, and Zetachain, you guys do amazing work as well. Thank you for having us on. Always happy to talk Bitcoin DeFi. And thank you to all the other speakers. I've learned a tremendous amount and really appreciate the work that you do in educating others and, being builders in the space, because we know, having survived our first crypto winter, it isn't easy. And absolutely the most bullish thing you can do is survive. And so, here's to us to keep, trucking on and hanging in there, because I think it'll definitely pay off long run. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, maybe I can say my farewells as well. The whole market's pretty optimistic looking right now. So I think ride that wave, enjoy the vibes, have fun, make friends, make allies, create a great community. That's kind of key. I think with us at Bitcoin.com, we do not yet support. Shame on us, right, guys? Shame on us. We do not yet support BRC20. We do not yet support ordinals. We do not yet support L2 L2s on Bitcoin. However, we are very much looking at these as possible additions to offer to our users. So, we've got 47 million wallets. We're open. We're looking for it. We're trying to find the right ones to play with and the right ones to introduce to our users. And it largely depends on, I'd say, the user experience, the developer support, I'd say the aligned mission. And I think it's very clear based on the conversation here that a lot of folks here are aligned on where Bitcoin can go and how it can not only become, I'd say, a more positive force to kind of like bring back some fun in Boomer Coin, but actually elevate crypto as a whole. I think the multi-coin, the multi-bridge aspect of being able to trade assets and across chains, across L2s, across Bitcoin, from Ethereum to other assets, it's going to be an exciting few years ahead. So really looking forward to seeing how this all progresses over time. And drop us a message as well if there's any L2s, any chains that want to come play with us. We'd love to hang. So yeah, let us know.
Okay, well, I'll take a second to jump in and say bye as well. Appreciate this in-depth talk. Learned a lot. Keep it short and sweet. Come check out Tonka Finance. Check out all of our socials. Follow us on Twitter. And then, I think it's one of the, like we've discussed, one of the best early use cases for ordinals and inscriptions. Come get more value out of your inscriptions, essentially, and lend them out. Do some borrowing and lending, and help move that liquidity to create more liquidity out of it and get more people interested in these BRC20s.
Hello again. Thanks for this amazing activity space and hosting the space data chain. And I agree with my friends for their opinions. The Bitcoin networks is like I said, is I think still very early and still very in the beginning part. And like I think we will see more projects like Alex Lab, like Tonka Finance in here, and this ecosystem continue to grow. And also, like, if you need any help, if you are building projects on ordinal NFTs or on Bitcoin, I am happy to collaborate. I can share with my community and helping growing your community. Yes, it was a really nice twist space. I couldn't speak. I am very sick. Sorry. The weather is very cold right now in Istanbul, Turkey. Yes, have a nice day, everyone. See you later, guys.
Yeah, I just wanted to add if there's any projects or blockchains out there interested in adding a BRC20 pair, we can facilitate that as well and kind of help founders be their liaison into adding their pair and walking them through kind of the math. If they don't want to add to their FDV, for example, and stuff, we can all handle that.
Cool. Okay, I think that's everyone. So thanks so much, guys. I think one more important note is to mention the rewards that we have from this. So community members can win a pool of 1,000 Alex and $500, I think, in tokens as well, for reviewing the AMA. Details on our Twitter account. If you scroll back a bit, there's a link, and 20 winners chosen for retweeting, liking, commenting, 10 for live questions, 10 for screenshots, and 5 for content generated from the AMA. As I say, check back our Twitter account and all details are going to be there. Thanks again for the panelists. Thanks so much for your insights and your time. We look forward to having a great year of Bitcoin in 2024. Take care and see you next month for the next episode that we have.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Ciao.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.